You know, why do we suffer has to be one of the biggest, most universal questions we ever ask. But what if we've been looking at it from the wrong angle this whole time? Today, we're going to dig into a spiritual perspective that might just flip your whole understanding of this experience. All right, let's just get right to the heart of it. A lot of us believe or have been taught that some kind of divine force is always with us. So it's totally natural to ask, well, if that's true, then why is life so hard? Why is there so much pain? It feels like a huge contradiction, and it's something so many of us wrestle with. And this isn't some new 21st century problem, right? People have been asking this forever. But the perspective we're exploring today, well, it suggests the issue isn't a crisis of faith, it's more like a crisis of communication. See, according to this view, the divine signal is always broadcasting. It's constantly on, sending guidance our way. So the problem isn't that a message isn't being sent. The real question is, why aren't we hearing it? And boom, here it is. The source material puts it so directly. The problem isn't an absent God, it's that we aren't listening. And just like that, the whole dynamic shifts. Suddenly, the focus isn't on the sender anymore. It's on us, the receiver. And that, well, that changes everything. So, if we're not listening, the next logical question is, why not? What's going on? What's getting in the way? And that brings us to these things called the inner obstacles. Think of them as internal static that's messing with our reception. These obstacles are described as three fundamental modes of nature that basically color our entire inner world. You can almost think of them as three different radio frequencies inside of us, and each one affects our ability to tune into that clear divine signal. Okay, let's break these down. First up, you've got ignorance. This is all about dullness, inactivity. You know that feeling when you're just totally zoned out, too tired to even think. That's this mode. You're just too dull to hear anything. Then there's passion. This is restlessness, ambition. It's when we're so busy chasing the next thing, so wrapped up in our goals, so distracted by our phones, we're just too active to notice the subtle stuff. And finally, there's goodness. Now, this is our best shot at listening. It's a state with clarity, of peace. But even here, the message gets a little bit filtered through our own ego and ideas. So if we're constantly being influenced by these modes, and we can't hear the gentle whispers that are being sent our way, what happens then? Well, this is where our entire idea of suffering gets turned completely upside down. And this is a pretty radical idea. What if suffering isn't a punishment at all? What if it's actually a divine backup system? It's the message that's so loud, so impossible to ignore, that it finally cuts through all of our internal noise. Let's walk through how this actually works. First, the gentle message is sent. But then, our inner state, our passion, our ignorance, it gets in the way. We miss the signal. We're too busy or too numb to notice. So when that soft approach doesn't work, the backup system kicks in. Suffering shows up like a cosmic alarm clock, blaring so loud that we have no choice but to finally pay attention. And the goal of this super intense signal isn't just to cause pain. Nope. The whole point is to shake us awake, to get us to stop, look around, and turn back toward that spiritual connection we lost sight of. It's a call to finally start listening. Okay, so that leads us to the most important part, right? How do we actually fix this? How do we go from needing that loud, painful alarm clock to being able to hear the quiet whisper? Well, that's what this path to reconnection is all about. When you really boil it down, a lot of our deepest pain, our loneliness, our anxiety, it comes from this profound feeling of being separate, of being cut off from our spiritual source, from each other, from our true selves. And I love this way of looking at it. The internal journey is like this. That feeling of separation is basically telling the universe, I leave you. The spiritual work, then, is to consciously and intentionally shift that message to, I love you. It's choosing connection over and over again. And that right there is the journey in a nutshell. It's not some one-and-done thing. It's a conscious, ongoing practice. It's the daily choice to turn towards connection instead of separation, to actively try and quiet down that inner static so we can finally start to hear. So I guess we'll end here. If we accept this idea that suffering isn't just random, meaningless pain, but that it's actually a message, then there's really only one question left to ask yourself. What is your suffering trying to tell you? And maybe more importantly, are you ready to listen?